Welcome to Small Arms Solutions. Today we're looking at another Aero Precision. Aero Precision is a company I've talked about quite a bit throughout the years because it's one of those companies that they provide more affordable options for their rifles. And unfortunately, a lot of times people associate lower cost with lower quality. And when it comes to these type of rifles, that is just not the case. Aero Precision, let me give you a little bit of background on how I know about Aero Precision. Around the 2003 time period, I was doing research for Black Rifle 2. And I was visiting Mark Westrom. He's the president of Armalite in Geneseo, Illinois. And I was looking at his production line, and I saw his receivers that were coming in. And I noticed that he wasn't making his AR-15 or M15 at the time, or his AR-10 receivers in-house. So I asked him, who makes them for you? He goes, Aero Precision. And that was the first time that I heard about Aero Precision, because then it made me realize that Aero Precision, it started off as a tool and die shop, basically like Lewis Machine and Tool did. They started off as a job shop. They were manufacturing parts for the firearms industry. And they were manufacturing components for some of the largest names in the industry. Many of you may or may not realize that many of these manufacturers out there, these really high-end manufacturers, they don't manufacture all of their components in-house. They farm those parts out to a lot of different places. Now, a place like Aero Precision, very well, just like they did with Armalite, those were Armalite forgings for those AR-10s. So the forgings came from a forging company. Then those receivers would go to Aero Precision. Aero Precision would machine them out as per the drawings that were provided by Mark Westrom at Armalite to manufacture those to the Armalite spec of those drawings. So they were not just like M4 upper receivers where the same company is making M4 receivers and selling them to dozens and dozens of companies. These are manufacturing specifically for these companies as per their technical data, and that's what was done. And at the same time, they were working on a design together. It was the first SPR that Armalite made. It was a combination of the two companies making one of their first free-floated rails that was manufactured of several segments that you would put together to have a free-floating rail. So it was probably back then when I learned about who Aero Precision was. And that was long before they were manufacturing their own firearms. So they continued for quite some time as a OEM manufacturer until they started to get into their own market, their own firearms. Because again, they were building upper receivers, lower receivers, handguards. They were building all these components, in-house. So why did it not make sense for them to make their own guns? Then, of course, you look at the industry, especially when it comes to 308s. To find a good 308, you're looking at close to $2,000, if not well over, to find a good quality 308. So they're generally out of the reach of a lot of people who don't have disposable income to spend $2,000 to $3,000 for a 308 rifle. Their 5.56 rifles, we will be doing a video on one of their M16A4s where I talk a little about the same stuff about sort of the historical aspect of the company. But the one I want to talk about today is their M5. The first M5 that I did was probably 2006, 2007. It was for Small Arms Review. I did a review on it. And it was a rifle that I had built up. I had the M5 upper and lower receivers, and I had an Armalite bolt carrier group, and then I had a barrel that came from Centurion Arms with his handguard. This rifle is all completely from Aero Precision. This is all bought or all put together, all their components, now except for the barrel which we're going to get into as well, and the bolt carrier group. As of right now, anyways, going on Aero Precision's website, you're not able to buy complete firearms. However, you are able to buy complete lower receivers, complete upper receivers, their charging handles, and the bolt carrier groups. So the rifle that you see here was procured that way. It was procured by the lower receiver assembly, an upper receiver assembly, and a separate bolt carrier group, and a charging handle. So if you look at the MSRP for all those components, you're looking at a combined price of around $1,700, buying them by the pieces. You also see sales that come out where you can save money as well, and the parts that they're using on here are all premium parts. So I want to jump into this looking at the components and what goes into them. The first part that came was the lower receiver. Lower receiver came complete with every part that you see here. So this is the upper and lower receiver are DPMS pattern, which you'll see when we take it apart, which means your back end comes down at an angle instead of squared off like the AR-10 type. You have the Magpul STR stock on here, and you have a standard mil-spec receiver extension. When we take this apart, we're going to take a look at the buffer assembly on that. So you have a standard M4 type receiver extension. You have a specific buffer that is designed for this, which is a much shorter buffer, and you have a heavier recoil spring on here. That enables you to use standard mil-spec parts rather than go, for instance, like LMT and have the proper longer receiver extension that will take standard M4 buffers into 308, which gets you to balance properly. For semi-automatic only rifle, the worst thing you're going to get here is you're going to get bolt carrier bounce using that smaller system. And bolt carrier bounce on a semi-automatic rifle doesn't cause you any problems. It does on selective fire as well. Again, the lower receivers, these are all forgings, 7075 T6 aircraft grade aluminum. This has a standard mil-spec type trigger, about 6.5 pounds, I would say, when I shot this one. You have stock magazine release, and you go to the left, you have a stock safety, your standard ping pong paddle on the left-hand side. Magpul Mo pistol grip. Again, this is one of my favorite things. I usually put the Myods on here, but this is the same contour. Fits really, really well. Upper receiver, 7075 T6 aircraft grade aluminum. You have a forward assist. We won't get into that. But it has the forward assist, injection port dust cover, 1913 rail on top. The handguard is referred to as the Atlas 1 handguard. Now, there's two different types of upper receivers that come for the M5. You have one that has the handguard as part of the upper receiver. It attaches directly to the upper receiver. That's not what this one is here. But you do have an M5 that does that. This one here is basically an upper receiver where this attaches to a barrel nut. And it does have the DPMS higher profile tang. You notice that we don't have a continuous rail going from front to rear. Basically, we have this is off here. Then you have right up an area up in the front here where you're able to put on your backup sight. And again, this is all M-lock. You have two QD slots on the rear, right and left side. And you also have a reversible QD slot on your stock for your mounting of your sling. Now we have a low profile gas block on here as well, which is basically put on with two of the set screws. And I have not taken this one apart, but I believe this one uses the dog nose, so it will not move forward. This is a rifle length gas system as well. The barrel on here is also very interesting because Aero Precision has procured Ballistic Advantage to manufacture their barrels. So they bought that company, so all the barrels that you see coming with Aero Precision are, again, Aero Precision owned Ballistic Advantage. This particular one's an 18-inch barrel, chrome moly vanadium. It's a 1 turn and 10-inch twist, 5/8 by 24 thread, so you can place your sound suppressor on here. And it's the QPQ finish, which is the nitride finish. Sub 50 diameter gas block, low profile. As we stated previously, it is a rifle length gas system. The barrel extensions and the bolts are something I want to touch on very briefly here. It's sort of a topic of its own, but it is worth knowing when you are building your own rifles. The original AR-10 barrel extensions and bolts are slightly different in their dimensions. The bolts and barrel extensions cannot be mixed up. If you were to look at the bolt of one, you actually have the breech face sits in slightly deeper than on the other, and that also will affect your ability for it to lock. You also have the length of the locking lugs, which differ as well. So when you're building these rifles, because of those mechanical differences for as far as the lengths of the components, you need to make sure that if you have an AR-10 bolt, you have an AR-10 barrel extension. If you have a DPMS pattern bolt, you have a DPMS pattern barrel extension. So those are two things that you do want to watch out for. So let's take this apart and we can take a look at some of the parts on the inside. Did not come with a magazine. What we have here is a D&H Tactical magazine. D&H Tactical is a magazine that I'm very fond of for the 308 SR25 pattern. When we test always, we use the Magpul P-Mags. We'll use D&H Tactical. Remove the upper and lower receiver. Remove the bolt carrier group. And remove the charging handle. Now we refer to DPMS versus AR-10 type pattern. As you can see how this rounds upward. Rounding upward, that refers to the DPMS pattern. If you look at the Armalite, which is the same as the SR25, Diamondback uses it as well as LMT, it's more squared off. That is more of the Armalite original SR25 or AR-10 pattern. Now looking at the both of them, I tend to like the AR-10 pattern a little bit better. I think it's a little bit stronger the way that the web is on here versus it being rounded off like this. However, for the most part, DPMS is the most popular in the industry. However, the military manufacturers tend to go with the Armalite AR-10 type or the original SR25 type. Now, we spoke about the buffer sling. Now, take a look at this buffer. This is a very short buffer compared to the standard AR-15 M16. Now, what has to happen is if you want to use a standard length receiver extension, you would have to shorten up your buffer to go along with the longer carrier. Now, the only problem this has is for mostly selective fire because you can only get one weight really in here. Where you look at the standard AR-15 M16, you can get 3 weights. Now, normally with a 308, you're going to be using 3 tungsten weights. You're going to have a very heavy buffer because you got a lot of mass coming back and forth. If you were to have a military grade rifle that was selective fire, you would be using this. You would be using an H3 buffer. But you would also have to use a proprietary receiver extension, the longer one for the AR-10. Well, the Aero Precision wants to keep more in line with keeping their parts, commonality. So they go with the smaller buffer and they go with the smaller receiver extension. The only thing this can really hurt you with is trying to suppress. If you have a rifle that is overgassed, that can cause you an issue where you won't be able to adjust it with the buffer, which in that case you may need to switch to a adjustable gas valve to be able to get your gas down so you can shoot it. With some buffers, you can increase the weight that will assist you with the overgassing of the sound suppressors. This particular rifle, we have not done anything suppressed yet. So basically we would have to see if this rifle would work suppressed, if it was overgassed or not. Some are, some aren't. But you don't have the option with these smaller ones to be able to make those kind of adjustments. Now, of course, if you did have those problems, you could replace it. But as this lower receiver comes from Aero Precision, it comes with this particular system. Again, mil-spec type trigger. Now, for as far as this lower receiver is concerned, this full assembly, you're looking at a price of $535 to have it fully assembled. So all you got to do is drop on your upper receiver. The bolt carrier we have here, I believe this is manufactured by Toolcraft. This has the nickel boron finish. Of course, you can go on and you can get any finish that you would want. You can get the manganese phosphate, you can get nitride. I just happen to have chosen the nickel boron for this. But it is a typical bolt carrier group. Again, it does state that this is a DPMS pattern bolt that's going to go with a DPMS barrel extension. The charging handle is pretty neat. This is designed by Aero Precision. They call it their breech. And basically, it's extremely rugged. It's made out of 7075 T6 aircraft grade aluminum, the same as the upper and the lower receiver. You have two very large ambidextrous latches on the right and the left hand side. Looking in the bottom, when you go with ambi, you're looking at a little bit more complex in its mechanism. But basically, it's very economic. It's very ergonomic in its feeling, very robust. It does have a patent pending lever mechanism on it as well. But the one thing we do want to take a look up on here is you see this little shelf that you see right here. The purpose of that shelf is to fire this gun suppressed. This covers the lip on the back of the upper receiver, which is an area where gas will come back it will actually hit the shooter in the face. This basically is a block to keep that gas from coming back into the shooter's face. So for those of you who do plan on shooting suppressed, it's something that will be good to drop in pretty much to any AR-10 type upper receiver. You're looking at an MSRP of about $119 for this. Now, as far as the upper receiver is concerned, this came as a complete upper receiver for $790. The only thing that I had added was the GLX scope on here, primary arms, the 2.5 to 10 by 44 first focal plane. But the upper receiver all came as it was. And again, we had a M5 upper receiver assembly. The Atlas 1 handguard, along with the chrome molybdenum 18-inch barrel, nitride treated. And of course, it does include the forward assist, the ejection port cover, as well as you have a fire cartridge case deflector on the left-hand side. But again, if you look at the machining on here, it's absolutely gorgeous. And of course, if you compare the upper and the lower receiver together for fit and finish, they are the exact same color. These also are a matte black finish. This is not the shiny jet black. There's a lot of attention to detail and a lot of attention to quality. A lot of manufacturers, again, you're going to get variations in the colors of upper and lower receivers because anodizing is a very tricky thing. Anodizing is generally one process you have, one way that it's anodized. What makes the difference on the material is the way that it's prepared. For instance, if you want it to be a shiny jet black, you don't waste time prepping it. You don't have to bead blast it or do anything of the sort with it. You just have to anodize it. Something like this, you'll be able to feel that it's got more of a gritty feel to it. It's not slippery. That's a matter of basically bead blasting and preparing the aluminum to take the anodizing to give you a proper color. The other thing is using a good anodizer. Anodizing is also a very tricky thing because a lot of anodizers who do a lot of large volumes, they don't change out their anodizing tanks on a regular basis. Those of you who've seen the purple colored receivers and purple colored handguards and such, that's basically where you have an anodizer who does not change out their chemicals on a regular basis. As those chemicals get older, you start getting those lighter and lighter colors. So many manufacturers, I know SIG's one of them, they basically told their they're anodizers that you have to change out your chemicals at least once a week to maintain our quality. It's the only way you're getting a contract. So a lot of anodizers are doing that now, so they can get contracts with the higher end manufacturers. But that's an area where you're at with Aero Precision. All of their upper and lower receivers look exactly alike. They match. They're very, very well made. So then what we're going to do now is take this to the range, and we're going to see how it shoots. The best group that we got was 1.6 inches, and that particular group was shot, believe it or not, with a ball round. It was with the Remington UMC 150 grain full metal jacket boat tail. In fact, all the ammunition that we shot that day was thanks to Remington providing us that particular 308 Winchester ammunition. We shot about 300 rounds through it. We had absolutely no malfunctions whatsoever. It shot very, very well. Again, we tried different magazines. Again, Duramag, the P-Mags. We also had some Lancer L7s. And we also had some of the Israeli-made polymer magazines. Everything shot very, very well. For somebody who's looking to buy a good AR-10 who wants a reasonable price and wants excellent quality, you're not going to argue with a $1,700 rifle that with a regular ball cartridge is going to get you 1.6 inches at 100 yards. It's an excellent rifle. You get this as a baseline that you see right here. As time goes on, you want to make some improvements. You want to put a better trigger in there, you can go ahead and do it. If you want to put a improved buffer system, go ahead and do it. If you're going to suppress it, You can go ahead and change out your gas block to a fully adjustable one if you so chose. This rifle here, again, we haven't tested it with a sound suppressor, so we're not quite sure how it will work. Again, my guess is it may have a little bit of trouble with some of the full baffle. If you use one of the reverse flow, you'd probably be a lot better on it. But their barrels are very, very well gassed. So again, that's something that we'd have to see. And of course, if you want to suppress it, there may be some steps that you have to take. But overall, the quality of this rifle is excellent. I definitely would highly recommend Aero Precision, anything that they do. If you're looking for a 5.56 rifle, again, people always equate cost with quality, and that's not always the case. Aero Precision, I think, is the epitome of quality and cost that sort of oppose each other. Because again, this company's been around a long time. This is an OEM manufacturer. Their parts are made for some of the most expensive manufacturers that they used to think very, very highly of. And that same attention to detail goes into their own parts as well. So I do hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do, please click like, please subscribe, even better, share.